Okay, let's close out here. So, do I think Dredge is the new scourge of the modern format that's going to be banned immediately? Blah, 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 blah. Golgari Gravefall's a problem. No, I don't think it's that. I think that the format was in a very, very exploitable place for it. Um, Very specifically, Conflagrate, an Ancient Grudge, and those specific cards give you a very powerful game against creature-based combo decks, even through hate. And I think that the amount that you dominate those strategies that were previously among the best in the format was very high, just because of those cards. And I think that that is a big part of it. I think that if the format moves around a little, I could see this deck losing a lot. It is very powerful, and honestly, um, so there's this whole idea like Grave Troll is just an absurdly powerful card, and it never leads to anything good happening, and it leads to the same bad thing happening over and over. Is actually the real issue. Is that whenever Golgari Grave Troll's good, it's never doing anything unique. It's the only time Golgari Grave Troll has ever done anything unique was um, the period of time between Ravnica or between Time Spiral being printed and Future Sight being printed. When there was actually like a dredge deck that returned Golgari Grave Troll to its hand and cast Life from the Loam and got back Sfogthos, and then played Golgari Grave Troll, attacked with like 10/10s. That's the only time that card's actually done anything interesting. It actually had game tags. But attacks are reasonably fast, attacks from an angle that people weren't covering well, which is the graveyard. Um, I think there exist a lot of tools to fight the deck. We saw the Lantern deck shred me. Um, I think that matchup's just generically terrible, not just because of Bridge, but because of the main deck Surgicals. I think that Ghostly Prison's a great answer to this deck, like something similar along those lines. I think that there just exist a lot of tools to fight what this deck's doing, and they're not all Tormod scripts. You don't have to be on Tormod scripts. You can play Relics in your main deck if you want, and just be like, that's just a fine card sometimes. Like Anger of the God, fine card. Um, it is not difficult to imagine strategies that are built in such a manner that they beat Dredge in a very similar way that playing like Spell Snare and Electrolyze is how a blue-red strategy would beat Affinity. And that's not like horrifically warping your deck. It's you can beat Dredge without the equivalent of Ancient Grudge or whatever. You could beat Affinity without the equivalent of Ancient Grudge or like huge amounts of it. You just have to understand that some decks are going to need that if they want to beat this, and sometimes like great, you just like accept that you don't want to beat this matchup and you just don't put the cards in your deck. And it's really just another deck on that Affinity axis to evaluate, albeit a little more all in or all out compared to Affinity. Um, this is about the fairest I've seen a Dredge deck. I think the Shriekhorn slot is something that can be worked on, but everyone keeps saying that over and over. Um, that's about it. Dredge is Dredge. If you're going to play this deck, realize that there's a lot of very small, intricate. It is punishingly intricate early on, and that has always been one of my issues with Dredge. Is there's a lot of really small things that you can slip up on going through all the motions. Um, like tactically, I feel like I have a good idea of how to do all this stuff, or strategically, it's just some of the small tactical stuff that I always miss. Um, yeah, I'm not. There was a lot of hype about this deck being a nightmare, and I would honestly not be upset if it just ceased to exist, but it is not the end of the world, and yeah, I think the other Dredge decks without Grave Troll were more interesting, like the Jason Chung one from the Eldrazi era, but it's a deck. Modern's always going to have stuff that happens like this, and I'm interested to see what steps the format takes from here to survive. Well, not to survive, to progress.